Hello, welcome back to Movie Husbands. Today we're going to be talking about how our friend made a movie.
So Rehab Cabin stars Lacey Jeka, Scott Mandel, and Alexandra Steggins. It's directed by Kate Beacom Louis Legge and written by Kate Beacom with a story credit by Kate and Domenic D'Andrea. All right, Matt, so today we're going to be talking about Rehab Cabin. Our friend Kate has been a friend of mine for a really long time, since high school. Probably a lot of the films that I really love and are like some of the treasures that I found from like, say 2005 through 2012 are movies that I saw with Kate, like including like The Master, There Will Be Blood, like movies that are really formative. Kate and I used to go to the movies all the time. So Kate went to school in New York. She majored in screenwriting. Her first script that she wrote post-graduation was Rehab Cabin. So it's kind of interesting for me because I read this script like 10 years ago and I thought it was so good when I read it. It's such a high wire act. Like its tone is just a balance between being way too dark and like just an all-out comedy, and you're reading it and you're like, oh wow, this is really balancing this out really well. And it has some really interesting things to say about celebrity culture. It has some interesting things to say about our relationship to famous people. And to see this become a feature film has been really cool. And you actually worked on this film.
I did. I worked on this film for like a week, and it was one of the best weeks of my entire life. I had such a fun time. In terms of my role, I worked as a dolly grip, and so I helped set up the dolly track, make sure it was level for certain scenes, and then help break it down, of course, and move the dolly back and forth during certain shots. I'm used to filming live events, so I'm used to filming weddings as a living, if you do not know that about me already. And so I've kind of developed a way and pattern of doing these things with just an assistant of myself. It's just such a different beast of filming live events compared to movies, which there are just so many moving parts, and the whole thing is pretty much mapped out for you, which is one of the aspects about filmmaking that I actually really love.
Yeah, not to diminish like your efforts at all, right? But you worked on this movie for like a couple of days.
Yeah, it
was
literally like 5 days.
And it was really, really hard work. But it takes like an entire gigantic crew, and it takes a person with vision to execute all of these things. So I think the perspective that both you got from it, and I wasn't on set, but just hearing you talk about it and what you learned from it is, it's amazing, all of the vision and creativity and all of the talent that needs to come together to make a film. So I really give my friend Kate a lot of credit. I never thought I would have a friend that would make a movie that was like commercially released. Like, that's very cool.
I am so proud of Kate. I'm so proud of the whole cast. Also, director of photography, Peter Pavlakis, I thought did a wonderful job in bringing that whole 90s vibe to life, because that extends past just the movie within the movie. Is that the movie itself takes on this very 90s feel. The main plot of this film is that there is a washed up celebrity that's in all the gossip news sites, and these two friends who absolutely adored this person as they were growing up, was in all their favorite kids movies, is getting drunk at the club every night. They come into contact with her when she actually gets in their limousine. So these two decide that they are going to kidnap her, and they are going to take her to a cabin, and they are going to rehabilitate her so that they could re-resurrect her career. And I think this premise is just absolutely hysterical, and it does lead to some absolutely hysterical scenes in this movie. I love even just the beginning of this movie where they're having a reflection on their favorite child star by watching all her favorite movies that she had been in. I basically worked on the movie that's one of the movies that the child star had been in.
Yeah, like a movie within a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie within a movie.
So the movie within a movie is called Worldwide Witch, which is hilarious. And the movie itself and the movie poster look so quintessentially 90s. It's almost like an Olsen Twins movie or something that would be on Disney Channel in the 90s. Like, it has this really great 90s aesthetic that's really funny. The celebrity is named Amanda Campbell. She's kind of a stand-in almost for like a Lindsay Lohan type, like in these great movies that are really cherished when you're watching them in your childhood, but then she gets destroyed by the media and all of these things and has a lot of issues. But the film comments on that in a really interesting way. I think that's quite funny. I want to talk a little bit about the actors in this movie too, who are so fantastic. Lacey in particular, starting with Chloe's character, right? So Lacey really has to balance a character who, as we were talking about before, is pretty obsessive. No character in this movie is a pariah, and also no character in this movie is 100% worth rooting for. They're always somewhere in the middle, right? So to, again, walk that line like we were talking about with the tone, Lacey has to make this person kind of obsessive, kind of difficult to sympathize with, but also getting at something that's really real, both thematically and about her character.
You feel so close to a celebrity watching all their films as a kid. You feel like you know them in a certain way, but you really don't know them at all. And I love how this film remarks on that relationship between us as the viewer and them as the celebrity. And I think for Chloe in particular, this results in a very like manic obsessive type of relationship with this celebrity. In the beginning, there's almost this like silent obsessiveness that comes out in very little ways.
There's like a look in her eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has it's the same look that she gives in the limo to when she first sees Amanda Campbell. She has this kind of like obsessive...
It's almost like an infatuation.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
The moral ambiguity of the beginning of the film is slowly being lost as the film progresses, and her character is just becoming more obsessed and more manic. It's like those qualities always existed in her, and you see them in little aspects at the beginning of the movie, but they really come to a head towards the end of the movie, and they just pour out of her, and you just realize how crazy she actually is.
Scott Mandel plays Domenic. Domenic has to balance out Chloe's obsessiveness. Domenic is a bit more passive. He's on board for the idea at first, right? But he kind of tones down a lot of Chloe's more kind of obsessive antics throughout the film. So to do that too, I think takes quite a bit of subtlety. It takes kind of a screen presence to balance out what Chloe is doing. So they're actually such a magnificent pair in this movie. And I also love Alex Stebbins in this movie too, who's playing Amanda Campbell, the kind of like celebrity character. She's so funny. She has like such this dry, sarcastic wit throughout the film because what's happening to her is like ostensibly ridiculous. Like the situation that she's in is insane, especially from her perspective, to have these people that you've never met just kidnap you so that they can reclaim their childhood memories and what they thought they liked about you so much. Another interesting thematic concept. But her sarcasm throughout the movie is like so much of the humor that's within it. And even just like when she gets into the limo and she's kind of like drunk from the club, she's like, just drive. Like she just has such a great comedic sense throughout the movie. So that's it for our chat on Rehab Cabin, which is now available on Prime Video and Apple TV to rent. Check out Rehab Cabin and let us know what you think in the comments, and we will see you next time.